I finished animating my coin. It's time for us to physically render our animations. Remember, all the work that we do here inside of Blender is only going to be available in Blender. We need to render out a small little movie file so that we can cut it into a film, broadcast it on a TV, or post it online. Our audience is never going to see our Blender projects, so we got to get it into a format that they can see, a movie file. Now, at this point in the animation, it's really great to start to understand what the camera is seeing itself. We want to look through the viewfinder of our render camera so we can understand what it's seeing. Inside of our outliner over here, we can click on our camera and see all of its properties. This icon right here is going to allow us to look through the viewfinder of any of the cameras that we have selected in our three-dimensional scene. Boop. And now we're looking through the viewfinder. Another great keyboard shortcut is to hit the 0 key on your numpad. Let me show you. The 0 key is going to allow you to look through the viewfinder of the camera and get a good solid look. Okay, now we can see, yeah, that's my animation. It's only 60 frames long. I've made a couple small changes. It's only 60 frames long, and it goes from the left side to the right side. Pretty straightforward. Because I only have an animation that's 60 frames, I need to make some changes to the start and stop time of my animation itself. Now, we were talking earlier about all of these values down at the bottom. We can change it from 1 to 60 down here, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to explore the actual render output properties. This is one way of changing it, but let me show you a more kind of complete way of changing some of these values. If you look at the properties panel here, we have a whole series of tabs that are really important. We have our render settings, which will allow us to choose the rendering engine. We're going to be using the Eevee rendering engine for almost everything that we do. More on this in a little bit. But then we also have our output properties. This is going to determine some really important features of our render, specifically the size of our render, 1920 by 1080. This is broadcast 1080p video. It's also going to allow us to establish the frame rate. For everything that we're going to be doing in this class, we're going to be choosing a frame rate of 24. This is a cinematic frame rate. If you go and watch a film in a cinema, it's going to be at a frame rate of 24. If you're trying to broadcast something on television, it's going to be 29.97. We're going to do everything at 24. Just gives it a little bit more of a cinematic look and feel. And then last, but certainly not least, we have our frame start and our frame end. We want to put this to 60 because that's, for me, in my animation, my animation's only 60 frames long. Yours may be a little bit longer. Now, changing the value here, check it out. I'm going to zoom out. Notice that down in our dope sheet, it also changes the start and end value because they are the same value just in two different spots. Any change made down here, let's put this back to 250, you can see that it immediately is reflected in the frame end or the range end of our timeline. Okay. So this is how we control how much of our timeline we're going to render out. It's not going to, it will always render out between these two values. If your animation is within or longer than this range, then we need to make some adjustments. Okay. The last thing that we need to do before we hit that render animation button is tell the computer where and how we want to render this animation. This right here is going to tell you where it's going to be rendered. I'm going to click on the folder icon. This is where the file is going to be saved, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Okay. So this is the where. It's always going to be saved to a very specific location. If you don't manage this, I don't know where you rendered your file. So only you can prevent forest fires, right? Only you can control where on your computer you're going to be rendering all of your animations. Be mindful of it. Okay, manage this. Just click on the folder icon, change the location. Now, the next thing that we need to change is the file format. We're going to be rendering out movie files inside of this animation. So we're going to change the file format to FFmpeg video. This fella right there. Okay, now this is step one. This is the format. This is going to get it into a movie file. So like a .mov or a .mp4, if you're familiar with these video formats that you find out there on the web, or something that you take on like your phone or something, or if you have some filmmaking experience. Okay, this is going to create a movie file, which is what we want. The next thing that we have to do is we have to give it a codec. All video files come with a little bit of technology that determines how this video file is compressed into a very small format. The default one is this Matroska one, which is a good default one. It's a good place to begin, but we're going to use a more industry standard video format and encoding system called QuickTime. The QuickTime player is the most widely used and professional video format on our planet. At the pro level, everything is done in QuickTime movies. So we're to use the QuickTime container and the H.264 codec down here. This is perfect for this class. All of the videos that you ever see on the web in any capacity, on YouTube or on Instagram, on Twitch, what have you, everything is encoded using the H.264 codec. This is the most advanced bit of web video technology that we have, so we're going to use it for this class. You can leave it at medium quality. I mean, you certainly could put it at high quality. One of those two is going to be just fine. For what we're doing in the context of this class, medium quality is just fine. It absolutely is. So once you set your frame start and frame end to appropriately match the duration of your animation, you're going to change the file format to FFmpeg. The container is going to be set to QuickTime, and the video codec is going to be H.264. Now, we haven't rendered our animation at this point. All we've done is that we've set up the properties, the conditions for our render. To physically ask the computer to draw the final image itself, we're going to go to the top of the screen, and I apologize for being slightly in the way. Next to the File menu, at the very top of the screen, there's a button here that says Render. Now, we don't want to do Render Image, because as one might imagine, that's just going to render a still image, a photograph, and this is what it looks like. It renders pretty fast. It's going to render whatever frame your playhead's at down here at inside of our timeline. While that's cool and a great way for us to check to see how our renders are going to look, once you're happy and you're ready to actually render out your animation, you want to go into the Render Animation choice from that exact same Render pull-down menu. It's going to take over and it's going to render all of the frames in your animation and save it into a singular QuickTime movie. And then it's going to save that file wherever you set it at the output location. So look here for your render. It's going to be pretty neat. And it's going to be a QuickTime movie that you can open in any video player that you have access to on your computer. If you don't have the QuickTime video player installed in your computer, I recommend that you do. It comes from Apple. Another great video player is the VLC video player. Another great option to see your render in your video, in the video file that you created right here in Blender. So that's how we render our videos. It's pretty straightforward, and we're going to be using the system for every animation that we create in this class.